Hi, I did finish this room using the, I forget, Airflow 4000 or whatever it was called, and it took 3 days. On the third day I used a roller on the ceiling, because when I tried to use the can and the spray gun above my head, it really just started dripping down and falling on me and going in my eyes, and it didn't work upside down. And that's the reason that, it was unusable when it comes to doing a real renovation. It was only any good maybe for painting something outside the house. But you can kind of see there's some drips and things as well that came with trying to use the cheap machine. And so we sent it back. On the third day, we cleaned up the box, cleaned the hose, cleaned the guns, cleaned everything, put it all back into the box that it came in, sent it back to the place we got it from. It's in Vienna, so it's in the same country that we're in, and we got a refund on the same day. So we're pretty happy with Amazon. There's no problem with that. And then we reinvested the money and bought the Wagner, which is about 413 euros. And with this extra connection, the wand, it's especially for doing things like ceilings. You can see there's a picture of a guy painting a ceiling. I don't want to paint my head again, so I wanted to get the proper tip. I've never used one of these airless systems, but from what I watched online, it definitely looks like the professional step, and a step in the right direction. So here's the box. We got it yesterday. I haven't opened it. And this one is the Wagner. I don't know which number, but it's twice as expensive, or twice the price of the last one, and I'm sure it'll be 10 times better. Ooh. It looks good. So it should already come with a very long hose, a tip, and the spray nozzle. And basically you just drop this part into a bucket of paint and start spraying. But of course I've not used it before, so I'm going to open up the box and have a look at the pieces. I guess I could stick it together because there's like a framework that holds the pump. And yeah, I guess there's just like a couple of screws to put this thing together, and let's have a look at it. It's pretty exciting, but I felt pretty burnt from the last spray gun that we bought, so I'm not as excited to open this as I was to open the last one, but I'm much more excited seeing a lot of videos on this in English, and it was easier to understand how to use the unit. No paint thinning. That was a real killer last time, trying to thin the paint all the time. This is how it comes fresh from the factory. I guess this is part of the framework. How long is this supposed to be? 9 meters? A 9-meter hose, which looks pretty decent. Much, much thinner than the big fat air hose that was hanging off the Euroflow or whatever it was called. Okay.
I think it was called
Aeroflow 4000. I remember the 4000. Okay. Apparently the top part of it is a container. So the top part is empty, and I guess that's where you put your tips. Thinner tips and fatter tips, and it looks like they just squeeze in there, and there's enough space to maybe throw in a pair of gloves. That would make sense. So far, I guess this is the lid. It looks like the lid of the box. Filter, a tip. I guess the handle's in here. This part is the hose that gets put into the paint bucket. And although we're going to mix the paint bucket with the drill to make sure the paint's mixed, we don't have to bother about thinning out the paint this time around. Very well packaged, solid. I guess that's what happens when you get things from Germany. Quite light. It's lighter than the last unit. As far as a pump, it's not very big. It looks quite simple, and that's going to be a really good thing. The simpler the better. Get the handle. Spring loaded. I thought it would be screws, but it's spring loaded, I guess, so you can take it off easy. There you go. That's pretty easy. I think it's 7 kilos. It's just a rubber cap. So basically there's only 2 places to put anything. And I am going to read the manual and watch the video on the getting started. But basically it looks like this hose goes onto this, and this hose goes onto this. I can't imagine it being much more than that. Just having a look at how it would work. Yeah, that's straightforward. Okay. This goes on. I'm not really sure why we have 2 hoses, but I guess it will become clearer as we start using it. Alright, and then I guess we put the clip over the end to make it nice and tight on both of the hoses. Yep. It's quite tight, the clip, so it feels pretty trustworthy. Yep. Okay. This is where the actual paint comes from. It is so simple. I don't know how anyone could get it wrong. It looks pretty straightforward. Here's the hose. It's a warning. If you are injected, if you spray yourself and you are injected with paint, do not treat it as a simple cut, and then you have to go to a physician because you've just injected paint under your skin. Pretty scary stuff. So yeah, it's a serious machine. It's not for kids to play with, that's for sure. I'm not going to overdo it. I just do it tight, so the machine even lifts up how tight I've done it. But I'm not going to overdo it. I don't want to put stress on this joint. I'll leave it as it is. Clearly this would go into a bucket of paint. What we can do is we could listen to how loud this machine is, and then we'll have a look at the gun itself. I'm curious at the volume. It's a 250M. It's quieter than the last one, which is already good. What will happen is though that it'll suck the paint up into the tube, and then once the pressure has built up inside the pump, it actually will stop pumping, stop creating the pressure until you start spraying, and then it starts to build up pressure again. The hoses and everything seem to be pretty straightforward, and now we can look at the handle. It's so nice the way everything's packaged. It's like a classic unboxing video. Alright, and this is all name brand stuff. I think what we tried to do before was save a bit of money by buying something from France that I've never heard of. And in doing the research for painting though, high efficiency airless means that there's actually less pressure in the hose and less overspray. Up to 55% less overspray. That's what they said in the ad. Oh, it's rubber. Oh no, it's plastic. Plastic here. It's a lock of some kind. Okay, so there's a lock so you don't accidentally paint it when you put it down. Alright, under here looks like where the filter would go. And this bar is the filter itself for filtering the paint, and then the filter chamber which screws in as part of the handle here. Also, it came with two tips. It came with a 311 tip, if you can see, that's the tip there. But the 311, it's fatter on the back and thinner on the front, and it's the nozzle and it shows how it sprays. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. There's a flat line there. That one is the 311, has an arrow, so you can't really get it wrong. It clips into the top of the gun and you point it in the direction that the paint is going. This one is the 517. I think that's the broader spray. And if you can see that too, it looks like a bigger hole or a bigger sort of nozzle on the end. And again, it's a very simple system where you can see it has an arrow. If the paint does get clogged, you simply reverse the tip, spray out the block, and turn the tip around again. I've not done it, I've only seen it on video. So it's new to me. These filters look quite good. They're steel mesh, stainless steel mesh. Hopefully you can reuse them because I would like to. And this part is very solid. It's been turned on a steel lathe. Yep, very heavy. It's probably even almost as heavy as the gun. You unscrew this bit a little bit like putting on a drill bit, and this comes loose. When it's a little bit loose, not too loose, you put it with a point facing yourself, and you can see this piece of plastic sits inside this circle here. There it goes, snug, and then it's in the middle. It's pointing backwards at the moment, but still I'll tighten it so it's straight. Finger tight, and then turn this nozzle so now it's pointing in the right direction. I'll put the lid on. It's the last piece of the puzzle. Somehow these two pieces click together.
They don't click together.
Oh no, they split in the middle. Okay, put that part on. It's just 2 points here. That's one. It's the other. Okay, so that's a little door frame. Can click down, it locks so it doesn't fly open. That's pretty good. Like most guys, you know, I just pull the thing out of the box and start putting it together. I barely look at the instructions like most people, but when you have a unit this simple, I don't really know how much you need the instructions. You do a little bit. I realized too that as I kept trying to spin this bottom nut, it just spun and spun and spun and doesn't do anything. And I thought, well, I'm not doing this right. I did have a look in the book, and it splits in the center, and this center part will split, and this is where the filter will go. For that I have to use the second nut and just simply turn it. Right, it comes with a filter, and I guess that's another filter. This first filter looks more coarse, and the second filter looks more fine. To tell you the truth, I think we'll just stay with the coarse one that's already in there. But it looks as simple as installing maybe a, alright, just push it right in till it stops, and then the second half of the chamber screws right in. Of course, I'll use the spanner at the end to make sure it's tight. The last thing I would want is some paint. Cool, not too tight, but just tight enough that I know it's not going to come undone. And this thing's, as long as I keep this thing straight, it's pretty much ready to go. This is the last part.
Oh, I see why that can spin. So you don't have to turn the whole gun. Just the last nut spins alone. It's pretty good. If you're worried about the connection in there, you could use some of that plumber's tape, and that would keep a tighter connection. But at this point, it's brand new out of the box, and I'm not sure if I really need to worry about things like plumber's tape. Alright, that's nice and tight now. That's the unit. It's all ready to go. I'm going to just walk off and see how long this hose is. This will be good for doing the top of the stairs, because the paint bucket can stay at the bottom of the stairs and I can be at the top of the stairs far away from that dangerous paint bucket. So 9 meters is a pretty good distance. I imagine you could get a lot painted with that. Alright, so here's the handy dandy wand, especially for painting ceilings. It's an extension, still uses the same tip. It's basically the same nozzle. How expensive was this?
60.
60 bucks. But of course it's a Wagner one. And at this point we just want to stick with the name brand because we want to feel we can trust them. The wand, which will make it much easier to spray directly above your head. It's got a very big nut on it. Very big. Shit. Alright, I'll just do it hand tight. It's pretty tight though. Right, and now I can put the nozzle on again. The 311. That's the small one. No, I think we'll go for the fat nozzle. 517. Now I'll start with a small nozzle just so I don't freak myself out. Alright, point it backwards or towards you. Okay, that's it. It's pretty tight, it's good. Feels nice. And I'm really looking forward to testing out the new Wagner 250M.